Hey everyone. Happy Thursday. I am back for another episode of Kayla Unfiltered. I am Kayla Andrade, the founder of Ontario Landlords Watch, and this is where we have the conversations that are often avoided. The conversations are about housing, accountabilities, phone calls, and the people impacted by the decisions being made. Because housing is not just about building and statistics, it's about people. It's about tenants who need safe, stable housing. It's also about the housing providers who are trying to keep those homes available. And it's about asking these tough questions. Are these policies actually solving the housing crisis? Are they supporting the people providing rental housing? And are we creating a system where everyone can succeed? Tonight, this is Kayla, and we are going unfiltered. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We have a lot to unpack within this hour. We have Josie, who is being a busy mom out there. She's got her kid at baseball, so she's taking this call from her car. And of course, we have Jordan Nieuwhof, who is a former litigator with the Landlord and Tenant Board and now coach, and he has been a huge voice for us in the rental industry, and I'm always happy to have him as my co-host. So before we get into the crazy stuff that's been happening in this industry, which I hope you stick around for, but I want you to bring you a story that we have from Josie, and the reason why she's here today to tell her story, because very often these stories don't make it to media, nor do they get in front of council or get in front of the province. So I've created this channel on Ontario Landlords Watch YouTube channel so that landlords can come on with their face or they can come on off camera in order to tell their stories, because sometimes there's a lot of landlords out there or housing providers who are afraid to tell their story because it could come back at them because of their job, or it's coming back at them because they're self-employed. And I admire Josie for coming on and telling us her story with us tonight. Josie, welcome to Kayla Unfiltered.
Hi, thank you. I think I connected with Kayla just doing all the research I possibly could to try to get some help around the matter I'm currently dealing with. I follow social media and I see a lot of influencers who help, the TTC and have these discussions about such and such topics. And I reached out to someone about hey, can you connect me with someone who might be able to help with housing issues, in relationship with tenant and landlord. And I was forwarded to Kayla's page and I reached out and she connected with me. And at this point of the game, I had probably exhausted all avenues. My tenant signed a lease for May 1st. She was receiving benefits called portable housing benefits that is provided through Ontario, but then financed through the city. So trying to find someone in that jungle of phone numbers, calling 311, and no one knows who I should be speaking to. So it was my full-time job, trying to find someone to speak to get my story across. I spoke with my city councillor, I spoke with my MP, I spoke with my MPP,
Now who's your mayor? Who's your mayor of your city?
My mayor is Olivia Chow. I'm in the city of Toronto, and we see things happening that our city has probably not experienced to this extent in a very long time, and I think that we are officially fed up. And that was the one influencer that I had spoken to is actually running for city councillor, and if I was in his ward, I'd be voting for him.
Who is that?
He runs a page called Integrity TO.
Ooh, I do like him. I do.
Yeah, I do like him too. And he's not too far off from where I grew up, and it's really sad to see the way the city has turned around. So, through my discoveries, I've learned that, and I've went through every emotion. I cried, I was angry, I was yelling at people. I thought that if I spoke louder, people would understand me, but it seems like they're just reading off of a script and everyone has the same answer. Yes, I understand, but I can't do anything about that. Yes, I understand, but there's a privacy issue. Yes, I understand. So I wasn't getting anywhere with anyone, even the city the financial department who doles out the money to these individuals who are receiving these portable housing benefits. And in their title, you have the word housing, and they need a lease to get that benefit. So I uphold my end of the responsibility and provide a lease. And their end of the bargain has not been met since the first month.
Okay, so let's take it back a little bit, just because I want to be able to start off when did you accept this tenant?
May 1st.
And when did things start going wrong?
So the tenant did not move in until about May 14th, texted me with a story that a family member had passed away and she was dealing with that. And I was like, okay. Had sent me the money for the first month.
Okay.
And upon moving in would give me the last month. She moved in on the 14th, never sent me the money. And she said, I'm getting my money on the 28th of May as per the portable housing benefits. That was when their allocated money was coming to them if they had provided a lease. So this was May 14th. May 21st, she almost starts a fire in my unit.
So you let her move in on the 14th without the remaining deposit?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, it's okay. Like sometimes we're teaching other landlords not to do this type of things, but again,
no, and that never really happened.
Greedy landlord, right? This is showing how nice you are.
Well, I've never had a bad experience.
Yeah.
And so when she told me that her benefits would be paid out on May 28th, I was like, okay. I said, but then June 1st, you have another payment. And she's like, oh, yeah, that doesn't matter. And so she moves in May 14th, and on May 21st, she causes what's almost a fire in her unit. And we were able to manage it quite swiftly with the help of my main floor tenant and myself. And the tenant in the basement, who I'm having an issue with, was just around the corner and was able to run back home. And so I'm on my way home from work, and I run to the unit. I run to the unit, check on her, check on the unit, and her place is a disaster. Everything is everywhere. And I said, well, just walking in here, this is a fire hazard.
So the fire was fire in her unit?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So so she has a big dog in which she moved in without letting me know. And I know now that doesn't matter whether you say no pets allowed or not. So the dog was terrified because of the smoke and fire. And when I entered to check on the apartment, I had found out about the dog 2 or 3 days after she moved in, because my main floor tenant told me, and he said, hey, she moved in a dog. It's a very big dog. And I was like, oh gosh. I said, well, she hasn't said anything to me. I'll let her tell me herself. So she kept trying to avoid me. So when the fire incident happened, I went to the unit, and the dog was terrified. It is a very large dog. And she pulled the dog away about 3 times because he kept lunging. And then the 4th time he lunged and made contact with my skin and pierced about that much of my skin. So that was the first incident. And then I left, came back, and I said, I don't think this is going to work. I said, you've lied about your animal. You've started a fire. Your dog has attacked me now. I really feel unsafe in my space. And she says, yes, I completely understand, and blah, blah, blah. And I give her forms to fill out that she agrees to leave. And of course, she just takes them and never fills them out.
Yeah.
Well, from that day on, she just stopped talking to us. She refused any communication. Everything had to be in writing. I was like, perfect, that's fine. We'll just put everything in writing. I called the portable housing benefits, and I said, when May 28th came around and nothing came in, and I heard the recording saying on May 28th your checks will be. So I said, oh, okay, so she's not lying. So I waited to May 29th, nothing. I spoke it took forever to speak to her caseworker, who could not divulge anything and who could not help, and said, and this is where I was completely flabbergasted. She said, we cannot tell her how she spends her money. I said, pardon? I said, but I gave you a lease. You know where she lives. And she's like, yeah, well, that's how she gets her funding. And I said, to pay for rent, to pay for housing, I would suppose. And she says, well, we can't tell her what to do with the money. You can ask her to give consent for us to send you the money. And I said, well, she's not speaking to me. We're on really bad terms right now. And I had done enough research at that point that I knew that if she had paid me, any eviction process that I started would have to like start all over again. And I was like, okay, well, maybe like she'll leave, and I don't want her to pay me, and maybe she'll leave. And then, you know, doing research, I found open rooms, and I looked in there and I found an order with her name on it. I found 2 orders. And I looked at the order, and she was evicted, and she owed about like $8,000. And this was during COVID. So it was hard to kick someone out at that time because they were concerned about people's housing and safety.
What was the other order?
Well, it was the same thing. It's just that the landlord made a mistake on their the form. And
how much rent is actually outstanding now with you?
It's $1,400 a month. So it's June, July, and August, and her last month.
Okay. And did you have your hearing yet?
No, we're in the process of doing that. I was going to have a hearing August 24th, but I hired a paralegal. I had done all the paperwork. I was on it as soon as possible because I had been, you know, doing a lot of research, and, you know, everyone was saying you need to get on this right away. Don't wait. Yeah. And I made one little mistake, and the paralegal said they're going to throw it out. Let's redo it. And so we did that. And what was the mistake, if you don't mind me asking? I forgot to put the word basement.
Oh, okay. And
yeah, like she receives mail at my house, and it says her name, and it says, and I had pictures of that. I had documents of that, and I have a lease. Like, and I'm like, this is ridiculous. Like, I'm stressed out about this. I'm filling out the forms as quick as I can so I can get through this quickly. And I make one mistake.
And is she on OW or ODSP, or just the portable housing benefit?
From what I can see, from what she has given me, it's only portable housing, and they cannot tell me if she's on anything else.
Okay. And what did she put on her rental application as income?
She showed me the paperwork.
Oh, just from portable housing benefit?
Yeah.
Okay. So she didn't have a job type of deal. She didn't talk about OW, ODSP. It was just.
Well, she must be on ODSP because she's not working.
Yeah, that's the thing. And we're going to get into ODSP and OW because I think it's a lot of a process and support for tenants in need. But I think there is people abusing that section as well, in which is obviously causing a lot of heartache and a lot of cost to the taxpayers as well. So we're going to talk about that a little bit later as well, because no matter which way you look at it, if you're getting some type of cost associated to shelter, because normally when you're on OW, it says shelter cost, and then there's like basic needs.
Yeah.
You know, we have shelter costs. How come that is not automatically given to the landlord?
Yeah.
Because we do have people that are not financially set, or they're not, equipped mentally, that it does help them avoid evictions or trouble. By getting the government making it mandatory that if you are receiving taxpayers' money, it should go to where it's intended to go.
Well, I can tell you, I will never, after this experience, want to deal with anyone who's receiving any government funding, because as a taxpayer, I am not going to support a system that is supporting criminals, because in any other business, this would be criminal activity. But in my house that I live in, she is living rent-free, and she knows how much time she can have. She knows how much time she can buy right now. And that's the investment I have. I've made the investment to buy my property. If I don't pay my mortgage, I can lose my property. But I have to wait months and months and months for me to ask her to leave.
And if you don't make your mortgage payment, it can impact your credit, in which that's why we have front lobby now being able to impact the tenant's credit. And you're going to see a lot of like noise online, guys, people saying it's slander and defamation and you can't do this. Like I'm very shocked that they're staying quiet regarding the new changes happening at the Landlord and Tenant Board with the LTV order catalog. We're going to get into that too. I'll give you guys a little snippet. We're excited for it, but you're absolutely right. It is fraud, because there was someone that stole 39 pounds of apples from a farm and she got charged with theft. If you go into a grocery store and you rob the necessity of a food, you're being charged with theft. How can we allow individuals who knowingly take social assistance, people who get portable housing benefits, people who have access to rent banks throughout the province, and still not pay their landlord and result into an eviction status, which, get this, turns into an eviction hearing in which we are now funding the legal aid to that tenant to put the landlord who has everything on the line through the ringer, and then the government thinks like, oh, what is the option here? It's not about making things fair and balanced and kosher for the housing provider who do alleviate the pressure from taxpayers. It's like Mark Carney's announcement lately with 2.7 billion in that he's going to create these housing units. Hey, bud, like taxpayers are going to have to build it, manage it, maintain it, and subsidize it. So we have it's not a landlord and tenant fight here. This is about the whole landscape of housing and how it's being ran. And they're using you, Josie, as a social agency for the government without any compensation, because you're helping the municipalities avoid placing her into a motel, and it's going to cost taxpayers $3,000 a month approximately to house her into a motel.
And I said that
I guess I'm passionate about this, guys. So I want to hear, like, jump into the comments. This is about hearing your voices too.
I said this to the counselor. I said, so I'm housing someone that the state cannot house. I'm doing you a favor without compensation right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they had no answer for that.
So now where are you in your eviction? She obviously is still in your unit, and you're refiling because you didn't put that basement unit number 1, making sure that it's clear in which the address is, even down to potentially the postal code.
So the L1 has officially been started, and I guess we're waiting for. I hired a paralegal at this point because I made the mistake once and I didn't want to do it again. And for the safety of myself and my son, who's now traumatized because every time the fire alarm goes off in my house, we feel like that there's a fire. So, we were talking about this earlier. We talk about the mental health of the tenant finding a place, but you don't talk about the mental health of the landlord who is living in the same space. I'm dealing with the fire alarm goes off at 12:30 and instantly let's get outside. It's, am I going to lose my investment?
Are you living in the same building as her? Oh, that's awkward.
Yeah.
I'm already feeling my heart pump for you. So I can only imagine how you feel knowing that this tenant's like not paying rent, causing the fire in your home, causing some issues for you, and you have to go through this lengthy process where your elected officials are just always just falling towards the tenant side of things because they consider tenants to be most vulnerable. And I want people to be very clear. Like, I came from a family of tenants. They're still tenants. I really can sympathize with people who can't make ends meet. So many programs out there that if you're not here to screw things over, it could really work for you. Now, what was your biggest red flag accepting this tenant?
The red flag is when she didn't move in on May 1st, and I was a little worried. And then May 14th, when she told me that she had a death in the family. And then those were like, there's a little too much happening all at once. And then when she did move in, my main floor tenant was very helpful. I had very helpful tenants. He offered to help her move in, and I saw just bags coming in, and I was like, oh, like, why is she moving garbage bags in? And I was like, in my head, I'm like, is she homeless? And she wasn't, because her paperwork stated her address. And I just found out through open rooms that, because I think they just released that right now. Like, I guess it takes a little time from the time they actually leave to the time they actually post the order. I looked it up 2 nights ago, and she was in arrears about just under $13,000 with that landlord, and the previous landlord $8,000.
Okay, so this
and she's definitely a professional. And so the first order that I found on her, I saw the representative's name and I researched it. I found the representative. I contacted them, and we had a chat. And she said to me, "Oh no, don't tell me you have," and named the person. And I was like, ugh, my heart fell into my stomach. And yeah, she reassured me. She's like, "Listen, if you need help, I will help you. Like, fill out the paperwork. You just get on it quickly and da 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 da." So I did it. But then to find out 2 days ago that she did it to the landlord right after that too.
Yeah.
So she's probably paying about 1 month's rent per year.
Yeah, like, and then what is she driving? Anything? Is she driving a nice car or anything like that? I know that's usually the storyline behind it.
No, she's not. She's used some keywords with me. She's used some mental health words. She's used her application status, like what she had to check off in order to get that application. And there was no reason for her to give me that information because I never asked.
Yeah.
So.
And I think this is where we go into different organizations or different services where, you need an order and you need to be able to wait 4 months before you can post it. Now we have the LTB making these orders more public, but it's going to be within that 30-day mark as well. And that's why I became such a strong advocate for Front Lobby, so that it gives the landlord the power to report the unpaid rent and the unpaid utilities without having to go to the Landlord and Tenant Board, without needing the tenant's consent, so that we can get it on their credit check. So now the next question I have for you, did you do a credit check on her? While I put a link to our sponsor, Front Lobby, in the chat so people can check that out as well, because it also helps our good tenants. But did you do a credit check?
So this was the one and only time that I didn't. I checked because she was receiving government assistance. I said, this is guaranteed income. And gave me references. I checked the references, but now I know those references were just made up. So, like, not only do I have to screen my tenants, and I've done credit checks with everyone else. Not only do I have to screen my tenants, but now I'm gonna have to screen the references.
Oh yes, they're never. You gotta be like lingos. Like when you're talking to the references, you have to get into like Landlord and Tenant Board talk, residential and tenancy talk about the politicians to see if they're really in the game of landlording as a business, to really find out if you're talking to a cousin or a friend. And that's that niche where, when you are a part of, Landlord Credit Bureau, when someone is reporting, you actually get access to contacting that landlord by email. So there's different tools, but again, like, why isn't our government telling people about these tools? You know what I mean? Because again, they're making you the social agency without any compensation. Now, you're going through the process right now. Obviously, hopefully we can make sure that we're getting this debt not in a searchable database that people may not know about, but hopefully you are going to report that
I will.
To Front Lobby, so that it's right onto their credit. But what advice can you give to our landlords? And then after that, I'll have a follow up with like your advice, what you want to see changed from to our province.
I watched a bunch of videos, and people who are landlords or who are companies that screen tenants. And one of the things that someone said that really stuck with me is treat every tenant like they're gonna scam you. And I never had that approach. I don't have that approach in life with anybody. I treat everyone with 100% respect, and then you lose it if you are losing it. But I know now, and my former tenant, who I speak to every single day because he still lives in the neighborhood, said, I'm so sorry that this happened to you, because now you are going to be so cynical and so scarred. And he's right. There's no reason for me not to be now.
Yeah. And that's the hard lesson that some landlords have to go through. And this is why some people are like, even on this latest post regarding like, oh, the landlords are not accepting me because I have bad credit. I'm like, well,
Yeah.
are you serious? Like,
Yeah.
if you can't pay your bills, we're starting to be a little concerned on if you're going to be able to pay your rent on time, especially knowing that you can game this broken system that we have. And we have some changes. We've had a lot of changes that are happening at the Landlord and Tenant Board. But is it enough to convince landlords to stay in the game? And is it enough for us to keep investing our money into this industry so taxpayers' money is not going to be needing to be used to fund these nonprofit organizations who think they can do it cheaper, but it's actually more expensive for them to do?
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
if you have Doug Ford, our conservative government, who I believe if anyone's going to keep things fair and balanced, it's going to be the conservatives. It's certainly not the FDP, and it's certainly not the Liberal. What advice do you want to give government to make one change that can make a world of difference so that you stay in the game?
I think it's that, if anybody is receiving any sort of social assistance, that, like, for example, my tenant said, oh, they're going to contact you to make sure that this is completely legit. I'm like, great. No one contacted me. So we need to make sure that that connection between the agency and the landlord are being met. We need to make sure that they have all the information, like the lease and where the money goes and when it goes to the landlord and how often and whatever. That would make it a lot easier.
Yeah. And I'm going to pop up a comment here. It just says screening tenants is very important and does not matter where the income comes from. Yes, in theory, it doesn't. You need to screen the tenant. But at the same time, people who are receiving assistance based on the rent, you have to do an income ratio. Can they afford the rental unit at the same time? Because you also have to consider that, the income is even that portable housing benefit. People think it's a guarantee. Like, they actually review that. Not everyone, they could be completely cut off from that kind of income. So this information that they don't tell you. This is where housing shelters will reach out to landlords. They will say they're going to guarantee the rent. They're going to guarantee you damages. They're going to give you a lease on. They're going to give the tenant a lease on. Like, no matter which way, their mandate is to keep that person housed on your dollar. Right. So, and again, we talk about a social assistance. We talk about the portable housing. I got a couple of videos we're going to start off with. And of course, I got Josie and Jordan here to chime in on this. And Jordan, we're definitely going to talk to you about Josie's situation. And because I'm watching your facial expressions, but this is something that I've been following.
I think we need to correct something here that's very clear is we cannot use direct income ratios as a screening method, and ratios like that have been determined by the courts. There's some case law on it that it goes against the human rights when doing an income to debt ratio. So we have to be very careful on what we're calling it and how we're doing that. So you can't have that ratio to debt limit. That has been found at the board level and the higher courts to be a discriminatory practice, as unfortunate as it is. So anybody that does do that, because banks do it, why can't we do it here? We can't call it an income to debt ratio or an income to expense ratio.
What do they call it? Like, it's like 30%. Is it 30%, Jordan?
30% should go to your housing. Yeah, something like that.
Well, that right there, it's illegal. Any amount is illegal. Any percentages are illegal. You can't automatically deny a tenant in this province because of an income to debt ratio. There's quite a
What
bit of case law on this. So
is this the same thing as credit utilization?
yeah, exactly. So it's okay for the banks to do it, but it's not okay for you as a landlord to do it.
Because I know a lot of credit reports do come with this like percentage of credit utilization. Like this is even new for me, guys.
Of course they do,
Wow.
but you cannot deny a tenant simply on that. You cannot say that the tenant makes $1,000 a month and the rent is $700 a month, and therefore I'm going to deny them because they can't afford it. That's a form of discrimination that's been set in the case law. So you just can't use a fixed number to say your debt ratio must be less than 30%, or I'm going to deny it. That is considered a discrimination.
So you're obviously going through the channel, you're doing it, but you just can't tell the tenant that's why they were denied.
Yeah, you can't have an arbitrary number. That's the
Okay.
law. So of course you're going to
Okay.
use the debt
Yeah.
ratio. Of course you're going to use the system. Of course you're going to use the score.
Yeah.
But you can't deny a tenant on that practice. In fact, what do you do when you deny a tenant? You shouldn't have to give a reason. You don't have to give a reason. Certainly don't ever give a reason of why you're denying a tenant. Oh, that's so off topic. I just did that on my show last week.
It's good because I've been doing credit checks through TBS. I've done it through Rent Check. I've done it everywhere, and they always have that little ratio in which, again, the politicians talk about it, right? So they talk about what the tenants can actually afford. So it's great information. Again, we always talk about like you're denying a tenant. Don't really tell them what they're being denied for, but at the same time, we have to understand, like, why would you set a tenant up for failure? You know what I mean? If they can't afford the unit based on the rent and utilities and keeping themselves alive, why can't we educate that tenant and telling them you can't afford it? Like, let's try to get you into something cheaper. Let's try to get you on the affordable housing wait list that our government has between 10 to 22 years. But again, it comes down to the point where they keep increasing the rates to the homeowner and expecting the homeowner to absorb all that cost and suck it in so that the tenants get to live rent-free, to be protected from inflation, and then all of a sudden,
Yes.
we have our landlords taking off out of this province.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. Now, based on anyone who is dealing with OW, ODSP, we had Mario from the north. He made a video. This is something that's been happening in Hamilton. So I'm just gonna pause. Josie, I'm putting you on mute, but come back off just because a little bit of noise. 1 second. All right. So this is a video I want your guys' opinion on as well. So listen up.
Is exclusive and have uncovered a massive fraud that the government knows about, but you don't. Now,
hold on. We're trying to do this.
Ontario Works Program. For those who don't know, it's very similar to the welfare program that we have at the federal level. Currently, Hamilton helps administer that program, and they just admitted that there's $57 million in Ontario Works payments that went out the door improperly, and nobody at City Hall can say who's responsible for it. Now, this is what's happening. In those overpayments that are sitting in the books, it's far worse in Hamilton than it is in Peel and in Ottawa. But the numbers behind the Ontario Works program within itself are shocking. Only 5% of the individuals on that program exit to employment. It's 10% across the province, 5% in Hamilton. It's a permanent provincial welfare system that is also being gamed. The average Ontario Works recipient, they stay on the program for 3 years. And there's a whole additional layer to this fraud. And here's how it works. Tenants submit fake and forged leases to the landlords, and they submit it to Ontario Works. That allows them to get the deposit cash and the rent directly from the government. They get it themselves, not the landlord. Sometimes the landlords don't even know. And what happens is the tenant skips out and they don't pay the landlord and they don't collect the rent either. One tenant had 5 evictions. This is someone who's gaming the system as an example. They owed $30,000 to the landlord. Another landlord had 8 people claim his home as the recipient of the Ontario Works program.
True
And when
story.
landlords try to report it to Ontario Works tells them, we can't take that information. It's a privacy issue. This is why it smells like a massive cover up. One, for starters, the Landlord and Tenant Tribunal Board. It's a provincial tribunal. It's part of the Ontario government. So when tenants break the law like this and not pay rent, they have the record of it, but they don't step in to share it to stop the Ontario Works fraud from being perpetrated again, over and over again. So the government of Ontario, they refuse to take that information in on the fraud that is being perpetrated by these individuals, and the bill is being footed by taxpayers. Hamilton's reported a total of 0 fraud. They know it exists, but they haven't reported it to the police. Peel and Ottawa, they will lay charges. And when there was a committee meeting, there was a director who had the nerve to say that the system has checks and balances. The general manager stepped in to defend the department through a social justice lens. This all happened when a counselor was pressing for answers. They don't mention addictions, mental illness, or the crime. These are all the big elephants in the room. So you as the taxpayer, you're fundamentally funding the fraud, the drugs, the addiction, and the crime of all these individuals that are doing this to the program. There's one guy, his name is Hafiz Hussein. He's the only person that actually brought this forward because he got screwed as a part of the scam. And just remember, this is just Hamilton alone. $57 million is completely gone, unaccounted for, and the staff, they have no one to blame. And the reason all this came to light was because of one man who got burned, who actually stepped up, started investigating and asking the right questions to expose this whole fraud. When you have a program where 95% of people don't go back into the employment sector and 1 in 3 cycle back in within a year, we have a major crisis. This is the biggest fraud I can think of. And I personally believe the fraud within itself is in the hundreds of billions of dollars. And the Ford government allows it. And they also allow the Landlord and Tenant Tribunal to do virtually nothing. Their backlog is nearly at a year plus to wait to get your
Change.
case heard. So I've heard from individuals who have been screwed in this manner, where there is countless tens of thousands of dollars of damage. The government doesn't allow them to step in to kick them out for non-payment of rent. This doesn't make any sense whatsoever. In any civilized society, law and order must prevail. What the government is fundamentally doing is they are then pushing and imposing the social services on the taxpayer and shifting that burden to you instead of the government for their own failures. This is a complete shift in responsibility and financial implications onto taxpayers, not only through the Ontario Works program, but by also having slow, non-compliance, outdated, and ridiculous rules through the Landlord and Tenant Tribunal. Enough of the social justice. We need actual justice.
You know what's crazy about that? Just to say, I haven't practiced since October 2024. Orders are still just trickling in today. I get them in my inbox. That's
Hello?
almost 2 years. It's so ridiculous. When it says a backlog, it's a big backlog.
Well, and again, I didn't even watch the full episode of Mario, but like getting it to understand, like we are that social justice system for the government that they're relying on, and this is why we need to highlight this. And even if you're not a landlord or a taxpayer, like
Yes,
this is where you need to understand that there is like you need to ask for your council, you need to ask for your province to hold these people accountable. But I think they want to do things underneath, because it's going to become a bigger problem if they crack down on this abuse and if they crack down on this. Josie, I just muted you, so if you want to come on and say something, I heard a lot of like moving and stuff. So I'm a one woman band here, so like you come on whenever you want.
How hard would it honestly be?
Hello?
And I've been advocated from this from day one. Is any subsidies that are paid to landlords from our dollars, remember, it's our money,
Okay,
they should have the authority to send the funds directly to the landlord. And when the tenant is proven not to be able to manage their financial affairs with the default, honestly, what is considered a default really should be twice in a 12-month period, then the authority, the acting officer, the OW, OSB, whatever it is, should be able to go, okay, I'm sending the money directly to the landlord where the funds are supposed to be going. Yeah. How hard would that be? And how much easier would it be for landlords like Josie to accept the next welfare or ODSP recipient if the funds were guaranteed? Josie said earlier that she accepted this tenant because she thought the funds were guaranteed. Why isn't there a system where the landlord's guaranteed to get paid? Because it's our money at the end of the day. It's our tax dollars that are paying these ODSP, OW, and rent subsidies. It should be going exactly where it's going, and the criminal should be out on the damn street. Simple as that.
We had Peter here. He said you call OW office if the tenant isn't paying, and OW checks go directly to the landlord. Normally that happens when the tenant is in the arrears. They're going to be evicted. They're ready to bail them out through the other programs that are being used with your taxpayer dollars. And then they force the set tenant to sign that documentation to say future rent will now be directed to them. But again, they always can pull it back. So put that into context. The landlord's been there, trial and error. So we want to be able to say, we lost Josie, we're bringing her back in.
Thousands of dollars are owed before that even gets to the point. Now, I don't know why Josie, have you gone to the police yet and tried to file fraud with the previous orders?
With the previous orders from the previous...
with the previous landlord?
No, I didn't. I didn't know I could do that, because if that's
you can. Solo even has a fraud task force that looks into this. Charges have been laid. Through Solo's initiatives.
You have the orders to show a pattern has been done in which they can show it was actually fraud. And this is why accountability matters. And this is, again, let's go into the Landlord and Tenant Board announcing their catalog, announcing that they're going to make these orders public within 30 days. They're going to take everything, I believe, what Jordan 2020 onwards is now going to be posted to the catalog. But again, guys, it's great for us to see this. But again, are we going to be able to determine that the person that's in front of us, the person that's filling out the rental application, the person with their name and their birthday line up to that in particular order if they have a common name? So you kind of got to put that into context, that if you don't see anything, and again, if they're disputing it, these are final orders that they're only posting. You could have someone that's disputing this order and it's not going to make it to that order. I know Josie, you're driving, so I'm going to mute you right now just because of the noise, but just give me a nod and I'll put you off when you want to talk about it as well, because I need your thoughts. This is where we have to kind of see, like, this is why the non-payments are great.
Where am I going?
That order in order to have these type of situations happening and being told. But there is going to be that grooving, that little groove that we got to get over. So while I got Josie on mute there, I want to be able to kind of say, like, we have a lot of changes that we want to do in government, especially at the provincial level. We have a lot of things that are happening at the municipal level, but even in the provincial side of things right now, guys, is that the persistency of late payments has not been really talked about. And that's been a part of Bill 60. And what I've been coming to terms with is that the tenant pays rent more than 7 days late. Jordan, do you want to walk us into this so that you can kind of tell people what that persistency late payment looks like, how we are determining what is going to be considered persistency late?
Persistent late really truly hasn't changed in the almost decade of my practice. And typically a board member is going to look for 7 or 8 consecutive times in a 12-month period in order for that to be the definition of persistent late. It's not codified in the Residential Tenancies Act, so you can't find a definition anywhere of what persistent late means. So it's up to the adjudicator, the deference of the adjudicator. They have made some changes, though, to the act to clarify what that is. We still don't, from anywhere I've read, as persistent late is 8 out of 10 times, or persistent late is 7 out of 10 times.
No. There's news. Did you not get the news? Of course you wouldn't get the news. It's the government.
No. Which part of the news is that? If there's a big change to that, I'd love to know.
I'm hearing as of September 21st, 2026, a tenant pays rent more than 7 days late. So it's not the first, it's not the second, it's not the third. They have to be 7 days late, and that it happens at least 3 times within a 6-month period. The delay was not because of the landlord applied a payment towards another amount owing, such as previous arrears.
If that's going to be codified, that's beautiful, because that's exactly what the legislation needs. They need some sort of clarity on that. Which update did that one come from? That is great. That will be the first time there's been a change in a decade to actually codify what the hell persistent late payment is, because it's always been a crapshoot. And you got a sympathetic board member that's like, oh, I don't care. 8 out of 10 times, who cares? You got a landlord-friendly adjudicator that says 5 out of 10 times, 5 out of 12 times, that's persistent. They were all over the map. It was like rolling the dice, playing Yahtzee, gambles up. I'm glad they're going to codify that. I hope to goodness that's true. That's very important, and we need that out.
Now remember, like, this is the changes that are coming in through Bill 60. And when our government, as I've been doing this for 15 years, I've never seen bills that have been very heavily in protecting the small mom and pop landlords. But you guys have to understand that this is not just a landlord versus like tenant. This is like, we need to protect our good landlords. We need to protect our good tenants, but we also see ourselves as pawns in this game. And we have different levels of government, and we also have different parties within the government, such as provincial. So I'm going to show you a video. It's a little bit long. I might cut her off just because I'm tired of hearing this one speak. But this is the NDP leader talking about Bill 60, and you can kind of see through how she talks that it's not about Bill 60. It's not about, she asked about who Bill 60 is for. It's for the small mom and pop landlords who are drowning in this social agency that the government forced on them. But I want you to kind of take a look at her, and I'll give my thought process on her, and I hope you do too in the comments. So hold on.
Buddy, this is going to be a bit of a longer video than usual. I'm on my way home, and I wanted to share some thoughts about today, because it was another shameful day. Doug Ford's attack on renters, Bill 60, that bill we keep talking about, it passed. And now I should tell you that before we even got to the vote during question period, I pressed Doug Ford once again, as I have for the last 5 weeks, on how and why he's turned the Skills Development Fund into his own personal piggy bank. And let me tell you, he got pretty angry. He said, oh, guess what he said to me? He said, "You'll never be premier." Well, look, this guy was born on third base, and he thinks he hit a triple. Well, I get that he's scared. So, you know what, Doug? Just watch me. I'm coming for you in the next election. Anyways, I digress. Then the vote on Bill 60 happened. And while we were there in the gallery above us, where we all sit, there were dozens of people watching it unfold. Tenants, right? Renters. And when the bill passed, they erupted. There were chants of people over profits, and it filled the chamber. They were furious, and, as they should be, as I am. One protester yelled what every renter, I think, in this province already knows, which is, you're putting people on the streets. And you know what Doug Ford said? He said to them, get a job. I mean, it is hard to imagine a more insulting response. But anyways, it passed, the bill passed. But when I went back into the legislature and I introduced a motion later on, a motion to repeal Bill 60, we also decided to add into that to bring in real rent control. And I talked about the reality that renters are facing. that if you're making minimum wage in Ontario, you'd have to work 114 hours. That's 3 weeks of work just to afford the average rent before groceries, before anything else. And I asked a very simple question to the government, like, who is Bill 64? Because it's sure not for the single mom who's working 2 jobs and who can barely afford rent. And let me tell you, it ain't for the senior on a fixed income either who's facing eviction. And it's certainly not for the student who's struggling to afford their textbooks. It isn't. But they voted down that motion, and of course they did. It's not surprising because it was Doug Ford who removed rent control as soon as he got in. By the way, it was the NDP many years ago, back in Stephen Lewis's time.
So she's getting obviously in the past of how things are happening and how they got rent control. And she's obviously taking a bill that is meant for the middle class, the ones like Josie who are out there working to provide housing when the government can't. But she wants to make this look like it's a Doug Ford and he's the greedy, he's got the silver spoon in his mouth, and he's the one really sticking it to people who are struggling in order to get her in that position as premier. That deep down is what I was able to gather from her video.
Oh, the good thing about, so I see here at this point, it is in the regulations. So this being posted only in Grit's absolutely fantastic as of July 21st. That's now I see that posted. It's going out to the kids. That is beautiful. This is exactly what we need, this definition. So posted in Regulation 516. So if you're looking for it, you're not going to find it in the Act. You're going to find it in Regulation 516. That's
but do you see how secret that was? Do you see how it didn't really come out in the full landscape of things, where we don't have a clear definition of what to do, when to file? I had our community in Ontario Landlords Watch telling me what was coming down in their thought process, and not only their thought process, like what they're interpreting this to be, right? And again, rent is due on the 1st. Why are we waiting until the 7th to really consider this to be late rent? So I want to put that into context for you guys as well. We got Josie back here.
Either way, it's so much better than what it was, the crapshoot that it absolutely was up until this point. This is a huge benefit. To see this in the regulation, actually written in regulation, is so thankful to so many landlords and legal representatives, because an adjudicator now, no matter how tenant friendly they are, they're bound by this rule. Yep. So thankful.
Now again, this is a Russian roulette situation, right? Like the way it was. But now we have like the province. Hold on, Josie, you're driving, right, honey?
No, I'm done.
Oh, you're done? Okay. Just wanted to get your thought process on the persistency of late payment before we dive into some counselors in Ottawa, which I want you guys to hear.
Hello.
Can you hear us?
Hi, I've stopped. I had to get out of the rain.
No worries. I thank you for being a part of this, because you know what, I know a lot of landlords are quiet, and just like that NDP leader said, we have all these tenants in the gallery. Well, you know what, our landlords, they're at work, and they're also very scared to be in that gallery with all you people literally having to be escorted out. Can you imagine if you were sitting next to a landlord, what you could in detail? I want to show, we talk about everything that's happening with the NDP, but we also got to talk about municipal, right? So the municipal councillors right now, they are very supportive in some cities. I want to show everything that's spreading like a wildfire right now in Ottawa. It's in Hamilton. It's in Toronto. It's trying to come to Cambridge. It came to Kitchener. But when you look at what's happening in Ottawa and who this councillor is and how she's attaching her election campaign with tenant unions, I want you to hear her message regarding the renovation licensing that she thinks is going to protect these vulnerable tenants from landlords who are just trying to maintain their property, because you and I both know that we need to be able to give the unit back to the tenant at the same rate. If not, there are hefty fines. $100,000 as an individual and up to $500,000 as a corporation. And that's not from the city. That's from the government, that they proclaim that into with Bill 97. So this is a counselor that I hope you guys can help me vote her out. But here she is. If I can do this, I can do this. I was watching this video. No, that's I'm gonna mute Josie just because I got a lot of background there. 1 second. Here she is. I gotcha.
Directly to the 30% of Ottawa residents who rent their homes. That is roughly 300,000 people. Nurses, PSWs, teachers, artists, retail workers, students, and seniors. My message is this: we care about you. We want you to stay in our city, and we will stand up for you and with you against bad landlords who use renovations as an excuse to kick you out of your home. The rental renovation license bylaw is a tremendous milestone for our city, and it's elegant in its simplicity. All it does is say, show us your work. And if you are a responsible and honest landlord, which most are, then this bylaw will not stop you from upgrading your property. Because if you are completing renovations on your property that are significant enough to require vacant possession, you're gonna need a permit anyway. What we're doing here is calling bad landlords bluff. So there will be serious fines if all you do is evict a tenant, paint the walls, and jack up the rent. I have been clear throughout this process that we shouldn't have to do this. Right now, there is a financial incentive for landlords to evict good, long-standing tenants because of a lack of provincial vacancy control. There are no rules controlling how much the rent can be raised between tenants. When I was knocking on doors during the 2022 election, I met tenants living in the same building with the exact same apartments paying hundreds of dollars more rent than their neighbors. That's not right, and it's not fair. This council has been bending over backwards to appease developers and property owners. In today's meeting, council voted to cut development charges in half. The Housing Acceleration Plan offers all sorts of fee relief with absolutely no guarantee that these incentives will end up in the pockets of homeowners or tenants. We are saying yes to housing, but we still have an incredibly unhealthy housing rental market. In the last 10 years, rent has gone up 60%, more than double the rate of inflation. And as my colleagues have said today, we're losing 31 affordable apartments for everyone we build. This bylaw would cost the city roughly $55,000 a year to implement, and it would cost landlords nothing. Meanwhile, we have 3,000 people experiencing homelessness in our city, and it costs $26,000 per person per year for the city to pay for someone to live in shelter. This bylaw doesn't go as far as any other municipality in Ontario. I believe it should be much stronger, but I'm willing to compromise to see this bylaw pass today.
So again, she's going to be bypassing, more that she wants within Ottawa because it's an election years, and she wants to have something on her postcard when she's out there, marketing her voters base in that area. So again, you and I both know, Jordan, how often do a tenant get to avoid eviction when it comes down to the N13 process? Walk us through an N13 process so that she thinks that another layer or another license or paying a city a fee is going to stop bad faith evictions.
Actually, there's some really big issues with this N13 process here, how it is, because right now the city delays, and there's actually a story on this, and it's true. And it's very unfortunate where the hearing came before the city issued the permits and the board wouldn't adjourn the matter. It ended up getting dismissed. The city, you have to comply with the Residential Tenancies Act. You have to comply with all municipal bylaws and rules in order to get that eviction. They didn't have the city permit. This landlord's in limbo. The board has to deny it. Now, what is this landlord going to do? They're waiting on a city permit. they have to reapply to the board, but the city permit expires. This isn't a little situation. This is a massive situation because you got the damn city not talking to the province and the province not talking to the city. How is the city allowed to come up with rules like this where there's an overlap in jurisdiction with the province? It's creating a huge and massive issue. The city needs to take a hands-off approach and step back, or alternatively, the board needs to remove jurisdiction and this becomes an AMPS issue. Do you really want it to become an AMPS issue? Absolutely not. No, everybody and anybody in the legal profession knows AMPS, knows that's dangerous. So, but one or the other has to happen. You can't have these constant overlaps. N13s were very difficult as it was. Now they're nearly impossible. And this city councillor who really truly thinks that every single renovation that requires vacant possession needs a permit, that's absolute bullshit. You can completely rip apart an entire kitchen where you don't need a permit to do that. If you're using existing cabinetry, if you're using existing plumbing, you don't need a permit, but the tenant can't live there because the kitchen's gone.
This is just her gaslighting the situation because she knows it's going to make headlines. She knows it's going to appeal to the tenants that are not educated on their rights. And this is why we have to call her out, because we literally get into next level of 4 years by kowtowing to tenant interest groups and literally listening to people who are trying to educate, but it gets in front of media, and then again it's that downhill spiral. And this is where I want to show a counselor in Kitchener who was dealing with this, and he asked me the same type of question, how long it takes. And I want to shout out to Bill because he literally has a common sense approach, and just because we have people like her, we do have people like him, and I need you to vote for people like this in the next election, which is coming up in October. This is Bill.
My last question with regards to, let's say if there is a judgment against the tenant, how long does it take for a landlord to legally remove someone from a unit? Because all I hear is a system that is totally one-sided to one argument, and I feel like there's way more to this than just. So I like to see a balance, and that's where that's where I'm leaning towards.
Well, now that
personally.
they've hired more adjudicators at the Landlord and Tenant Board because they threw more money at the Landlord and Tenant Board, we are seeing hearings now between 2 to 3 months to get in front of an adjudicator. But what happens is that they overstock their hearing rooms, which result into adjournments. So you might have to wait another 2 months before you can actually get in front of an adjudicator again. Then they have a mandate between 30 to 60 days before they provide an order to the landlord. You need a stamped order from the Landlord and Tenant Board before you can even apply for the sheriff. And there's also a sheriff cost and a wait time for the sheriff as well, because we only have one that's operating within our region. And at the same time, even if you get that order, like I mentioned earlier, the tenants are going to be able to apply for a stay. And then after that stay hearing, because that's going to be some time as well, then they can apply for a review to say that the adjudicator made an error. Then after, if they still grant the eviction for the landlord, the tenant then can take the next steps, and the tenant stays in their spot until the divisional court hears their hearing.
Look at the pure frustration there.
I know, like it's like, let's go down this map. But I'm telling you, there's another video I'm going to show, and another counselor of Davy Scott's who is questioning a tenant union or a tenant association, the tenant active, I don't know their name, ACTO, funded by the government. Listen how that individual skirts around answering this counselor's questions. Here he is.
Anyone can appeal to the LTB if they get an N13, correct? You mentioned that one of the differences with this bylaw is that there's an independent body making the determination. Is the LTB not an independent body?
They do not, like as I said earlier, they are not the ones to determine. They determine whether vacant possession is necessary after the N13 is served.
And you mentioned that the appeals that you saw that went through, if someone went through our bylaw process for those N13s went to the LTB, that the LTB approved as being relevant, and those people should be rent-evicted, frankly, would this bylaw change that at all? For cases that go to the LTB, so let's say someone goes through the process here and then they still appeal to the LTB. For the ones that were approved in the past, would there be any different outcome for those people that lost at the LTB?
So the way this bylaw should play is that those who genuinely require vacant possession due to the renovation work can proceed accordingly. think of it as a filter, right? You're pouring water through a filter. The first layer is the bylaw, and then only the ones that can justify that vacant possession is necessary make it to the landlord tenant board. Then they determine whether to grant what the landlord is asking for.
But anyone can appeal to the LTB if they get N13, correct?
The N13 is filed by the landlord, and tenants sometimes can respond to it. Other tenants just see the first letter and they just leave because they're scared.
Do you see the gaslighting of it? It's like, no, it's an independent body. You have to go through the process. You have to show your evidence. The tenants know they can move back in at the same rate, and the fines are put in place if you do not allow the tenant to move back in. What is so hard about that? And we are paying, the taxpayers are paying that man to show up in Kitchener Council to talk like that.
Absolutely ridiculous, because all the tenant has to do is read. In fact, the N13, he says there that the first letter they receive, they get scared and move out. The N13 right on it says if you disagree, you don't have to move. What the hell? If you can't read that, you can't read anything else.
I know we're getting close. I want to show these clips. I wanted Jordan's opinion on this, and I gotta have this guy on next week as too with Sarah. So stay tuned to the 20th, guys, of August, because we're gonna have that. And this goes back to the division, right? This is the division of elected officials kowtowing to their special interest groups, making it look like it's a landlord versus tenants. Here we have Olivia Chow. Josie, you're gonna love this. This is the mayor of your city. This is her.
This, I put the chain on it, and I've been putting like stuff behind the door so nobody can just come in my unit.
Oh, that's good. You shouldn't have to live like that. Yeah.
It's infested with cockroaches and mice, and
All
it is very unlivable.
Almost 8 years.
Oh my God! 8 years and there's mold everywhere. They make money by squeezing you. They make money by neglecting your home. I bet you the owner don't have a home that have no front door. Right? So what can we do together? Let me tell you. Number one, hire more rent-safe officer. If they don't get fixed, the city will come and fix it. We then take the bill and charge the landlord. Yes. Never give up. Stay together. When we come together, we are stronger.
Now, again, I would like to question, is this on the Don's property? You know, these are the questions that I would have. Are we seeing people living in government housing in these type of conditions as well? But she is rallying the tenants to hate on these housing providers who are able to accomplish something that government can't. And this is where I want to touch base before I want to hear your thoughts, guys. But this is something that happened about 20 days ago. It was put through Thursday. They didn't say that it wasn't passed. They actually said that this was something that was didn't go through, but they got staff trying to come up with different options. But this is what they're also trying to do.
Could soon crack down on fraudulent evictions. Right now, tenants often have to collect their own evidence, hire lawyers, and fight through the Landlord and Tenant Board themselves. Supporters say that repeat offenders know that many renters can't afford the battle. If approved, the city will study whether rent-safe inspectors should be allowed to gather evidence of suspected rental fraud and help police launch criminal investigations into bad landlords.
Okay, so again, guys, we have this, Olivia Chow, the NDP type of feel happening in Toronto. This is what they're trying to lead into, and this is with this Josh guy, Josh counselor. Last name begins with an M. I can't remember them all. But this is something that they're trying to do. Meanwhile, they don't give the full details that tenants have access to free legal aid. And they make it look like they're on their own. But in reality, they have a lot of support, and a lot of elected officials, no matter which level they are supporting them. This is what's coming down to. Are landlords going to leave with hope? Or are they going to, or have hope with the government, or are they actually going to be leaving? But we have these counselors like Ariel. We have these people like Olivia Chow. we have the councils like Davey and Bill who are calling out the common sense. But I also want to highlight that this is not just about private landlords as well. We also have we do have these different people who are running. Now, I'm not going to be vouching for this individual as a mayor of Hamilton. I'll make that clear before I show this video. But she does go ahead and highlight what's happening in community housing, into government housing. So I want you to listen in on this little campaign that she's using, or he.
I moved to City Housing Hamilton in 2024. I immediately noticed issues with the building and its infrastructure. Problems like black mold, efflorescence, cracks in the foundation, pests like cockroaches, wasps, and bed bugs, leaking, floods, and other problems with the building were immediately visible. When I brought this to the attention of management, we heard, please call the maintenance line, but never call bylaw, and never put it in writing. Unfortunately, when I did those very things, I was targeted for eviction myself. I'm running to be the mayor of Hamilton because I know what it's like to live in City Housing Hamilton public housing. And right now, it's unsafe for many people, and the living conditions are not adequate. Just because we are low-income people does not mean that we deserve less than. We live in a city that has a population of almost 40% of people living with disabilities. Many people struggle to make a living in Hamilton, and most people are working class. I'm running for Hamilton mayor because I understand that leadership requires integrity, honesty, and trustworthiness, and I embody all of those qualities. Vote Scarlett to mayor October 26th this year in the municipal Hamilton election. Thank you so much.
And this is not just Hamilton. This is across Ontario, where there is a lot of maintenance and slum conditions that are happening throughout government housing. And they've chosen as council to target small housing providers who are the middle class, trying to provide clean and affordable housing to not only people who are good tenants, but they have to keep up with the maintenance on tenants who are damaging their units. So the tenants can create the damage, call their property standards, and the landlords still have to come out and they still have to maintain that in particular property. I want to hear from you guys one more last time, because I know I've kept you over. I literally have to tell people it's not an hour when we're doing it now every 2 weeks, because it literally sucks the life out of me. But I do want to thank everyone who's tuning in and watching and commenting. Like, this show is for you, and I do this for you. And I'm doing some other things on the back end of things that I can't tell you quite yet, but I am working hard to make sure that I'm bringing your voices. Jordan, what do you got to say? Everything that we talked about tonight, everything that I've shown you, like, give us your advocacy voice.
Well, that's fair. But you know what? Really, truly, at the end of the day here, you have Olivia Chow talking about the condition of the properties in small Ontario landlords right across the province, when we're looking at Toronto community housing as being one of the biggest slum places around due to billions of dollars in neglected maintenance. Sean Baird there, he's the CEO of Toronto Community Housing, and why doesn't he have the funding? It's an absolute unfortunate situation where the small landlord is being penalized, yet you got the largest corporation of low-income housing that is in an absolute state of disarray, and we're focused on penalizing the small landlord. That's complete bullshit. I'd love to get Sean or Olivia Chow on this show and show us the conditions of community housing, because that's the standard they set there. Why is it good for Toronto community housing? Why is it not good for the small landlord, for goodness sakes? At the end of the day, we have these municipalities that are trying to freeze the rent, prevent small landlords from doing investment, make M13s harder, and then go, well, you need to fix these units up so that they're fit for housing, and we're going to punish you if they're not. And then you turn an eye and you look at how the government keeps their properties in a state of disarray with billions of dollars needed for funding for goodness sakes, it's bullshit right across. And I don't know why anyone's a landlord here in this province still. My goodness, sell and move to a different jurisdiction. Move your rental properties out of this province and dry up the housing supply until the government gets the point and starts to create some friendly laws. We have one of the most overburdened systems in all of North America. And enough. Landlords are saying enough. Enough. And we continue to have a voice, enough. Do tenants need safe housing? Absolutely. Do tenants deserve housing? 100%. Should there be safeguards in place, though, like ensuring that rent is paid, stricter laws for the tenants that are bad actors, proper maintenance standards, and ensuring that rental incomes or rental expenses meet with inflation so landlords have the budget to keep up with the maintenance of these properties? 100%. We need a complete overhaul because the system right now is not working for landlords or tenants across this province, and it is an absolute shit show right across the province, no matter where you look at it. And I don't think anyone would disagree, unless maybe you're from Acorn. Maybe they'll agree.
Give us the likes, guys. Do the reaction, the heart, the likes buttons, because Jordan is spot on. Now, Jordan, I know that you are bringing our landlords together. For the ones who are crazy to stay here in this system, where can they find you to make sure that they are fully equipped into knowing what they need to know in order to sustain their business here in Ontario?
That's fair. My show runs opposite to yours every other Tuesday as well there. So find me there. Otherwise, Kayla will post the link in the YouTube channel below where you can find the landlord courses where we teach this as well.
And make sure you guys are following the Ontario Landlords Watch public page so that we can keep you in the know where you can reach out to Jordan and get his information. Josie, thank you for being a powerhouse, because you're not just talking about non-payment. You're not talking about someone who is abusing the system and knowing that there's accountability. You're also highlighting the process of Ontario Works and ODSP and their social workers and how they're not doing due diligence before they're releasing funds, how they're releasing funds for housing, but not going to housing. And this is where we call upon our province and our municipalities and our regions to do better before they give out funds to people, because it's not just the portable housing benefit, it's not the monthly rent. It's also knowing that tenants are gaining access to rent relief through different government programs when they know that the system or their tenancy is not viable anymore. And as a taxpayer, we need to know that our money is being spent wisely. We need to know that as we have a housing crisis, because it's mental health, it's addiction. We can sympathize with those people, but for my region alone, and Hamilton's even higher, they spent $65.5 million in homelessness. And why is the problem becoming bigger? Why is it getting worse? How is it, like, is it going through administration? Is it going through programs? Is the money going to marketing and not going to the people? We have questions. And even the mayor candidate, who is a Ward 8 councillor running for mayor, Rob Cooper, he's asking that same question. Where is the money going? So I think we've really highlighted a big situation that's happening here, not just as housing providers, not just on the government programs, but making sure that we're voting in the right people and that they're voted in by the people who are working to keep these taxes down and not using it as a money tree. Because I can tell you right now, guys, this is a battle. This is a battle between the left and the right. This is about the nonprofit organizations and all their employees trying to get their counselors voted in so that the money river keeps flowing to them, and that the solution is also the private sector, so that we don't have to depend onto our taxpayers who are taxed to death as it is in this country. So Josie,
can I just make a comment?
Yeah, of course.
I want to piggyback on what Jordan was saying. You know, as a mom and pop landlord, I am keeping my residents, my units in tip-top shape because it's my property. At some point, I want to take that back. So I really take offense to those comments that we have landlords who don't take care of things. because I think that's a very small percentage of the cases that we're seeing. But of course, they're going to hop onto those and make it something really big. And we have to remember that Olivia Chow, she lived in co-op housing. She had property in Toronto and rented them out. And now she's turning on mom and pop renters. With our influencers like Mario for the North and Integrity TO, if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be getting as much information as I am getting. And even with Jordan today telling me that I can go to the police with those orders, we need to make this public because it's not about a renting issue. And you mentioned, mental health, addiction. It's all of that. We're seeing, like on integrity.to, they talk about safe injection sites and they're asking questions like, well, how many people have you serviced or how many people have you saved? And they said none. No, they said, well, we don't have that information. I'm sorry, but if my tax dollars are going to a safe injection site, I think I need the transparency. I'm a school teacher. I need to be 100% transparent to my parents. And we're not getting that as taxpayers. So it's the whole system, like you said, the city is not talking to the province and the province is not talking to the city. Maybe we need one person to take care of it and that's it. The city should not be getting involved if this is an Ontario issue. I can't hear you.
Or is the system built like this by design? That is what it's all about. Like, we could be saving taxpayers a lot of money if they just start listening to the middle class more so than the people who are needing a hand out or a hand up. Like, what are we doing here? Are we becoming a government in which is becoming a social agency, which is never good? But you know what, guys? We are going to be back here again on the 20th of August. I want to thank Josie. I want to thank Jordan being my co-host. He's a wealth of knowledge. Please sign up for his educational webinars that he does every other Tuesday. He's absolutely fantastic. There's no charge whatsoever. I hope you share this video with your following, with your elected official, because this is what it's about, having these honest conversations. I want to thank you for joining me for Kayla Unfiltered. Whether you agree with everything we discussed tonight or challenge some of it, I appreciate you being a part of the conversation. Real change doesn't happen when we stay in our own echo chambers. It happens when we're willing to listen, ask tough questions, and have respectful conversations, even when they're uncomfortable. Housing affects every one of us. It affects tenants, housing providers and taxpayers, businesses, and the future of our communities. If we're serious about solving the housing crisis, we need a balanced, evidence-based solution, not political slogans or division. If tonight's conversation resonated with you, share this episode, leave a comment, and invite someone who sees things differently. The more voices we bring to the table, the stronger conversations become. I'm Kayla Andrade, founder of Ontario Landlords Watch, and this has been Kayla Unfiltered, because the best conversations aren't always the easiest ones, but they're the ones that matter the most. See you next time.